So, recently I've gotten into the coding scene, developing my own games and all in various engines due to a class that I've been taking at school, and just very recently, GDevelop, one of the engines I know how to use, hosted the Big Game Jam 7, and I decided what better way to practice my coding skills than participate in my first ever game jam. So this video will be detailing my experiences participating, and yeah. Let's get right into it. So with the theme reveal out of the way, being overpowered for this game jam, I had to come up with some quick ideas, but first I think I'm gonna need to call in a little help. Hey Boom, can you make me some music for this game jam?
Game jam. I don't know. I have like an entire album that I gotta finish producing. Like, I only have like a month to do it or something. I don't know. My summer's pretty packed. I don't know if I would really be able to.
Oh yeah, well I have your family. With Boom on board, we sat down and Boom ran me through a couple ideas, and we decided to go with some sort of neon futuristic vibe for the game.
And then the bass comes in, and then it's like...
Are we going with that?
I think I could at least use like that type of thing for like background music, so it's not too intrusive or whatever. But this is the motif that I liked.
So we're thinking, synthy, so more like neon, like some sort of neon,
maybe
like
cyberpunk style.
Yeah, I would say like neon,
but like pixel-ish. Maybe you could do 3D models, but it's just like has the filter on it.
I've never used the 3D. How does the 3D first person work? So let's test project. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the 3D, so we decided to go with a traditional 2D pixel art game. Boom had to go for a little while, so I sat there and kept brainstorming, and while I was doing that, I even found this really cool Neon City asset pack that was free to use and didn't violate any rules of the game jam for me using it. So thank you to this guy here that I'm not gonna pronounce the name of because I don't want to get it wrong. So then I started out making my character. I had a couple images in mind. These were the ones that I specifically put on my document, but yeah, I thought it turned out pretty good. You can see I kind of do a couple ideas here and, you know, backtrack on them because I realized that maybe not. But yeah, I think he came out pretty. Oh shit, he's too small. Okay, there we go. That's better. Then I started working on some animations, notably the idle animation, because, you know, that's probably the most important one, right? And after that, I decided I should probably go and get a good night's sleep. I was gonna need it for tomorrow. So on day 2, I woke up and I got right to work on a walk cycle. Now, I've never actually made a walk cycle before, so I had to look up a YouTube video on how I should go about doing that. You know, and for my first time, I think I actually did a pretty decent job. Here it is, if you want to see it. Yeah, I think I did a pretty good job, and unfortunately he's actually hitting the Michael Jackson here, so I had to go and make sure that his sprite flipped whenever you were walking to the left. And now we have a working walk. So then I decided to switch out the floor for what I found in the Neon City asset pack, and then after I got that working, I decided to make a call box for the repairman. Basically, I had an idea that there would be this shop in the corner that you would click to call, and then when you called them, they would offer you upgrades in exchange for currency. However, I could not get this to work, and I don't know why, but it was just such a pain in my ass. I looked over it 3 times, I had Boom look over it a time or 2. I even asked ChatGPT, and it couldn't even give me a solution that worked. I was beyond baffled. So I quickly made some more animations for the player and decided I would just scrap the idea that I was going with. Kind of. You see, I was still keeping the whole idea of the repairman and his shop, but instead of having it coded the way I was going to, where you would click on him and then the shop would open, actually what I ended up doing is having an open and close animation and switching it to whenever you press E, which not only actually worked, unlike the last method that I was trying to get coded, it actually looks a hell of a lot better. So, you know, maybe sometimes it's okay to get mad at your code and want to shoot yourself. Speaking of shooting, the next thing I got started on was the shoot animation for the player. After all, what kind of futuristic assassin would you be if you didn't have a gun in your pocket at all times? And I gotta say, I'm actually really proud of this shoot animation. It came out a lot better than I was expecting, and I had a lot of fun making it, even if it took me like an hour. Then I made sure to add a bullet and some sound effects, which I can only show you a couple seconds of because I realized that I was recording on the same audio track as Spotify and, you know, copyright. So here's that real quick. And then I finally decided on what I wanted all my upgrades to be, because it's kind of hard to make sprites for those if you don't know what they are. So I started out with the shop ones, the laser gun, rocket boots, and golden arm. I had this scrapped idea for the laser gun, but it just looked too cartoony to me, so I ended up reusing the colors and making something that looked a bit more normal. Then I did the rocket boots, which kinda suck because I'm not good at drawing boots, and then we have the golden arm, which I promise you is supposed to look like someone flexing and not just a bunch of squiggly lines. And then I got started doing some of the player animations because I was gonna have a lot of these upgrades in the game actually change the player sprite. And it should have dawned on me that that meant making 60 plus animations. So, this was the start of hell, but I wanted the game to be non-linear, so I kinda had to do this. Then I made sure that all my new animations were working as intended, and then I decided to make an OP meter. I'm not really sure why I made an OP meter. I think it was to convey to the player that these upgrades were making you OP, and that was kind of the point of the jam, so I'm not really sure, but it's here, I guess. It looks cool, that's for sure. Shortly after I woke up on day 3, I actually learned how to use the particle system in GDevelop, and I was like, yeah, I might use this later, and then I never actually did, but yeah, that's what was happening here. After that, I got to work on all the upgrades that you'd be finding throughout the game. We have a med kit, a hoverboard, the power crystal, nano cannon, and finally unstable molecules. After making those assets, I moved on to making the power crystal assets, and then I made this funky transform animation for when you get the unstable molecules, because the idea is that you turn into this god mode whatever after you pick them up. Speaking of God mode, we actually need some assets for that, so I made a redesigned God character, which I also think came out really well. And then I asked Boom to record some God music for me, followed by a couple of snapping of fingers and slamming on the table a little bit, and you get this.
I feel really bad that I'm wasting this on the game jam. I'm not like wasting it. I can always just reuse it, but like.
Yeah. Also, while I was timing something for sound effects, this accidentally happened. Alright, and... oh fuck.
Why?
So after that happened, I proceeded to mess with the blur effect a little bit to try and give myself a nice little trail while I was moving in God mode. I think it came out nicely. Then I finished up the shoot animation for God mode, as well as made an energy ball. I also made an animation for the rocket being destroyed when it hits something, and as you can see by my spamming of the ability, I think it looks really amazing in-game, and I'm very proud of myself. Day 4 was kind of a rough one. I had 2 days of school left, so I didn't get to do much, and anything I did do really happened at school during my coding class. The main thing you'll probably notice is that right here I started out making a battery health bar. And besides that, really the only thing else that I got done on day 4 was just a couple more animations. When I got home on the afternoon of day 5, I decided to make the final nano cannon animations for the different variations of whatever you'll have. After that, I spent a good hour procrastinating, love myself for that. And then after that, I did a lot of code simplification because I realized that adding the nano cannon and the hoverboard were probably going to be the worst experiences of my entire life if my code looked like this. So I sat there for a little while, dumbed it down, and got it to look like this. Much, much cleaner and nicer to look at. With day 6 started, I was ready to finally make myself some levels. But then I remembered that it's kinda hard to make levels in a platformer without enemies, because then there's no threat. So I started modeling a couple. This one is horizontal, it moves left to right like a Goomba would in Mario, and then I made a couple death animations for him, and actually, unlike a Goomba, you don't stomp on his head, you shoot him in the face. Oh my god! Oh my god! Dude, what? Holy shit! Yeah, that turned out way more violent than I thought it would be, so I did some last minute touches on how these enemies work, and then I spent the rest of this day working on a ranged enemy and also its death animations. This one wasn't modeled off of something specific, by the way. I was just kind of making a cyborg thing guy. Yeah. And with that, day 6 was complete. I felt like the game needed one more enemy on day 7, so I decided to make just another ranged enemy. I was gonna do a vertical enemy, but I'm not quite sure how I would get that to work, and so I didn't end up going with that idea. Well, I guess I do later, but not at this time. That's not what I was thinking on day 7. So I did another ranged enemy that shoots a little bit faster with a turret, and also made his respective death animations as well. I also decided to make it so that if you're in God mode, you can just ram through enemies and kill them, because why not? It's super cool and fun. And then I finally got started on my boss sprite, which I may have completely by accident modeled just like one of my original characters, the Observer, but that's besides the point. It looks really cool, and that's all that matters. I also had this scrapped idea about these enemies that would like kind of look grid-like, that would get summoned by the boss, but it didn't end up going with it. Although it does still spawn enemies, it just spawns regular enemies. Maybe if I had more time I would have followed through with this idea. And just one more scrap design, you can see a early version of the boss's hand, which did of course make it into the game, but not this specific asset. I knew day 8 was probably going to be one of my last days to make some major progress, so I started out doing some miscellaneous boss assets, such as a new hand, some attack animations. I made this core that you would have to shoot to actually kill the boss, etc., stuff like that. I put it in a small arena, added a shield, and then I decided that you kind of need to get from level to level, so here I was making a teleporter. I was going to have it be like a door, and then that didn't really work out, so we went with just these kind of statue things. I think it came out alright. Then I got to work and coded all the boss attacks so that they would work properly. I also made sure that the camera will stay in the middle, that way you can actually see the entire boss asset in all of its glory. I toyed a bit with the idea of the platforms coming up for you to get to the core. I just decided that you have to have a double jump ability to be able to get up there. I think it just kind of reinforces the idea that the boss is more powerful than you unless you are OP with all your upgrades. And I also made a death screen, of course, because, you know, it'd kind of be dumb if you were just immortal. Even though that the game is themed around being overpowered, you still need to die if you don't have the overpowered upgrades. So yeah, day 8 was mainly spent focusing on the boss fight. I'm starting to think that maybe I play a little too much into boss fights when I'm making video games and not the actual levels, as would become a significant problem in... So, I woke up on day 9, and I was preparing myself for an 8-hour shift at work. So, I decided that since I woke up pretty early, I was going to spend as much time as I could right before work getting stuff done, so that way when I came home later in the afternoon, I would hopefully have a little bit less to get done. So I started making this block, so that way you can't just walk past the boss into the exit area. I also remade the entire hub area, so now we have an actual level select. And finally I made some code dealing with the faces of the boss. Then it was off to work. So then I did some extending to the boss arena at the end, so that way I could have a spot for the end cutscene to take place. Adjusted some of the hitboxes, so that way everything felt fair to play. Made the end cutscene, which I won't be showing you because spoilers, if you want to see that, you're going to have to play the game yourself, sorry not sorry. And finally spent way too long making a title screen, and came up with a title which I decided would be Overkill Protocol. And by I decided, I mean I might have had to use ChatGPT for that as well. I'm bad at naming stuff, I'm sorry. So then I finally got to work on making the very first level in the game. What's that? Yeah.
Please, can I just have them back? I made sure music. I got the boss theme. I got the cutscene.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Man, what a weirdo. Now that I had some boss music, courtesy of Boom, I got back to work on developing level 1, and that took me about the rest of the night, as well as level 2, which was also in that night. Essentially, I spent the rest of the night and stayed up very late trying to get these 2 levels done because I knew that there was no time for me to procrastinate. So, day 10, the final day. I had about 5 hours left until the submission period, and I decided that I needed to get level 3 done as soon as possible. So I did a shit ton of work doing level 3, and then I moved on to a little bit of playtesting, just had to make sure things were working correctly, all that. Playtesting went mostly well. I noticed a couple bugs, but some of them I didn't have time to fix. The main one that I did fix, actually, was making it so that the vertical enemies in level 2 actually, you know, shoot more than one time. After that, I decided that I should probably add some lore to this game, just a little bit of story world building, the best I could. So I did some cutscenes at the beginning, and hopefully that'll make the ending make a little more sense when you get to it if you play this game. So I got the cutscenes done, made sure they ran well, and then I started submitting an hour early because I've never submitted to one of these before, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't, like, mess something up or it took too long and then I wouldn't submit in time. I was really nervous, okay? And I got it submitted, did some last minute touch-ups on the itch.io page, and now Overkill Protocol is officially out now on itch.io and GD Games. So if you'd like to go ahead and give it a play, I will leave the link in the description down below. It's kind of short, but it's also, I think it's a fun time. I'm very proud of what I was able to accomplish in a week, and I had lots of fun with GDevelop's big game jam. Unfortunately, as I'm recording this segment, the results did get announced and Overkill Protocol did not make it into the video. However, before the voting period ended, I did actually go and play some of the community games. I started with anyone who did rate mine. Thank you to all of you for trying out the game, and it seems like you guys had a lot of fun. And then I went and played some other games, and some of them were better than others, for sure. Like, some of these, I don't even believe they made this in GDevelop. There's no fucking way. But, yeah, GG's to anyone who was in it. Thanks for watching this kind of mini devlog, and if you enjoyed or want to see more content like this, or really any other content from me in general, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Also, go subscribe to Boom so you can listen to Rundown when it comes out.